Great night right now to welcome to our book talk segment. Man who's written a very interesting book. It's going to help a lot of people, I'm sure, particularly in the business world, but takes a lot of what he has learned and experienced in the military and put it in this book called One Mission, How Leaders Build a Team of Teams. We're joined today by Chris Fussell. He, of course, had the best-selling book a couple of years ago where he teamed up with General Stan McChrystal, and right now this book kind of a follow-up to that, and Chris joined us by telephone today. Chris, good to talk with you. How are you?
I'm great, Doug. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, first of all, congratulations on the success of the previous book, and first of all, for your service. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that on both fronts.
Yeah, I had a chance to read through the book, and I think more and more businesses, I would hope, are kind of adapting what the military has used for their organization. Obviously, much more life and death with what you do, but it can be adapted to business, right? How you organize teams and structure.
No, that's right, and I think there's this conversation is ongoing. It certainly isn't finished by any means, but we are seeing with the work we do in industry much more openness with progressive leaders in all spaces inside of industry to say, well, okay, what can we learn from these different components of the military, because they've been put in this very dynamic, complex environment for so many years. Clearly, there are not just interesting vignettes, but an organizational, structural approach that's probably applicable to what we're facing as well. So it's great to see that conversation evolve.
Yeah, I always thought, and I got a business degree in college, and then fine, you learn a lot of good things, but didn't seem to be a lot of emphasis on teaching leadership. I'm not sure if it's still that way in colleges, but that seems to be, that should be more part of the curriculum. What do you think about that?
I tend to agree with you. We talk about in One Mission how echo chambers can evolve, which is just groupthink. So you're all stuck in the same space, seeing the problem the same way, and it seems very legitimate and accurate. But it takes a little bit of a shock to the system to step back and say, are we just all repeating the same thing to each other? And I think in some ways, education, business thinking over time, you can understand how that might evolve. So I think injecting some new and fresh thinking. It's not the master play that's going to replace everything, but I think integrating this into more of the curriculum is probably an important step for the next generation.
Has that changed a lot in the military too? Kind of building teams and that. I guess back in the 30s and 40s, World War II, it probably was a little different than it is now. I would think, but is that evolving as well in the military?
It is, yeah. I mean, the core component of having highly effective small teams comprised of high-performing individuals, that's been the foundation of special operations for since its inception, right? So that part hasn't changed. Their tactical abilities and their equipment, et cetera, all that obviously advances very quickly, but that core component of that's our ground level strength. That hasn't changed much. That what has changed is the requirement to connect all of those teams and truly allow them to operate as a network, because that's the threats we're now facing. Is we have in these global insurgency movements in Al-Qaeda and ISIS and other sorts of things, it's just a bunch of individual actors who are connected via the resources of the information age, which is at everyone's fingertips, to form these flash mobs where they gather in one area and fight for a little while, and they can disperse very quickly. So there's no central thing you can fight. There's no central strategy document that you can capture and figure out what their next move is, like you could have maybe in World War II. So the teams that are very good at going out and fighting in those environments, they also need to be interconnected as a network themselves, so that they can move inside of that threat as quickly as the threat can adapt to their actions. And that's a different approach, and that's what we're hoping folks will learn from not just Team of Teams, but now One Mission as well.
Yeah, I guess obviously World War II and Korea, whatever war you want to talk about, your enemy, whatever it was a country's army. You knew what it was for the most part, except maybe a sniper here and there you had to deal with. But now you're right, you have little pockets and cells pop up. It's a whole different type of warfare. It's scary.
That's right, and those traditional models, and you see similarities in industry as well. You could look at one component of, say, a big nation-state army, and know, well, if I saw this sort of tank on this part of the front line, I can assume all sorts of things that's going on inside of the nation-state structure, because I understand their supply chain, I understand their leadership model, I understand how their political system works, etc. So you could make all sorts of predictive analysis based on seeing one part of it. and they were usually pretty accurate, right? And that's, a lot of big traditional, like, operations meant to throw the enemy off or based on where you position what sort of items on the front line, right? That doesn't apply anymore. You can't see one part of the ISIS network and understand anything about what the rest of it's doing because it's all disparate and it connects randomly almost every day.
Yeah. Let's talk about a couple of points in the book. We have limited time today, but tearing down silos, I like that terminology. I would imagine a silo meant is just kind of a one-way communications slot. Is that right?
Yeah, and the goal of One Mission is not to attack traditional models. It's to say, look, traditional models were purpose-built for a very good reason, and there's a lot of real strength inside of those systems to this day, but they are insufficient to fight in a truly networked age. So what we had to do was layer in the behavior of a network on top of that traditional system, and that network behavior is what enables you to overcome those siloed barriers, right? So silos just evolve inside of an organization because I'm on the sales team and I'm focused on this part of the market, and I go out every day and I try to make sales, and I'm not really interested or incentivized, nor do I have access to understand what's happening in R&D or production or et cetera, et cetera. I'm looking up at the senior leadership and out into the market, and everyone else is doing the same thing. Layering on a communication model and a leadership behavior model that forces those silos to see not just up and down, but left and right, is what ultimately creates the relationships and the understanding across those siloed barriers that allows you to break through them.
Yeah, I think that's, if you listen to people in companies that maybe aren't doing well, or employees that aren't that happy, that seems to be the biggest complaint, right? Either, communication between teams or just lack of communication between different teams. So that is a big problem, isn't it? No,
that's right. And those frustrations, it's just human nature. We want to pin it on a person or my boss or the C-suite or whatever the case may be. This is just the way things evolve, right? So there's no part of the system that's designed to create these cross-boundary relationships, which is what we had to accept. Like, this isn't anyone's fault. This is just the way we've evolved to solve previous types of issues. Those issues aren't the same anymore, so we have to change the way we think and operate and the type of culture that we have in place. And that's the whole the team of teams model is built to help organizations do exactly that.
Well, it's a fascinating book. Again, I should have mentioned Chris is also a partner at the McChrystal Group Leadership Institute, and you're based out of Washington, D.C., but some great structure to hopefully most companies or all companies will look at it and adapt at least some of it, because I think it can help any business be more productive and employees be happier. That's the main thing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. We all want to be part of an organization that we believe in, and we're happy to go to work, and I think the system helps us get there.
One Mission, How Leaders Build a Team of Teams is the name of the book. And Chris, give a website, people get more information?
Yeah, they can head to McChrystal Group, our firm's website, learn more about what we do, find the book there. The book's also available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the big distributors as well.
Great. Chris, pleasure talking to you. Hopefully we can do it again. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate it.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or DougMilesMedia.com.